And none of these liberals behind me that I worked with would ever do business with a dictator that jails and kills people.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Behind the Headlines. We have a massive amount of ground to cover today. We're here to give you the facts and arm you with the statistics that, the mainstream media refuses to touch. So please like, comment, and subscribe. And as you can see on your screen, we are incredibly thankful for the comments on the last video. So thank you for engaging because it helps get us suggested in the algorithm and to reach more people. Now, on today's show, Donald Trump just signaled that USMCA is dead. We're going to show you the real reason why Mark Carney went to China. And yes, we cannot overlook that shocking admission that he made. Buckle up. Here we go. Donald Trump sent a shockwave across the border, signaling that the trade agreement covering over 80% of our commerce to the United States is effectively dead. We aren't just losing our seat at the table is being chopped up for firewood, and Canadian workers are being left in the cold. Let's take a look at the President of the United States earlier this week.
To build their product in the USA.
You don't think you're going to renegotiate USMCA?
Well, I can. It expires very shortly, and we could have it or not. It wouldn't matter to me. I think they want it. I don't really care about it.
So it might go away.
No real advantage to us. It's irrelevant to me. Canada would love it. Canada wants it. They need it because we don't need Canada product. That's the thing. I want to be a nice person, but we don't need. I want to build the cars here, not in Canada. We used to build cars in Canada. Now, the Canada cars, the Canadians are moving here to build cars. Same thing with Mexico. Same thing with Japan. Japan's paid us billions and billions of dollars for the privilege of making cars here and selling cars.
What's your immediate reaction to what the president just signaled?
Well, I said that a couple of weeks ago when the main people around him in the White House were telling the U.S. press it's almost dead. And even the Canadian ambassador said the same thing. The Canadian press wants to ignore that. Well, the Canada-U.S. trade deal is dead. Trump just confirmed that. Our second biggest export after Alberta oil is now threatened. And Canada exported 1.4 million vehicles to the United States, mainly Toyotas and Hondas, with a value of $45 billion last year. That creates 125,000 Canadian jobs that are now at risk. But this is only 18% of the vehicles sold in the States. So when Trump says it doesn't matter to the States. They can easily fill that 8% with domestic production.
I'm not smiling because it's a happy thing. I'm smiling because it's classic Trump. But Mark Carney's China trip is a deliberate move to piss off Donald Trump and to kiss the ass of a 10-pot dictator. It's essentially what it is. But let's look at the cold, hard facts because that's what we love on this show. USMCA puts 20% of our total GDP on the table. And as Ian mentioned, 90% of Canadian-built cars go to the US, and those tariffs would immediately crush the jobs that Ian mentioned. Wiping out Section 232 protections exposes $17 billion in exports to those 25% tariffs. And the consequences of that would immediately kill 40 to 175,000 jobs in communities like Windsor and Sault Ste. Marie. Let's take a look at another clip from the president because that's very important too.
Prime Minister Carney is in China. And how do you see the deals Canada and China have just signed, trade deals between the two partners?
Well, it's okay. That's what he should be doing. It's a good thing for him to sign a trade deal. If you can get a deal with China, you should do that.
Okay, and so again, I was kind of chuckling, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. And you and I had different reactions initially to the president's consistency here. But the implications are the same. What do you make of these two clips?
Well, this is typical Trump. He can be gracious because an oil deal with China is small potatoes there is no pipeline to deliver it. And Carney came up with an MOU that will take 10 years to build a pipeline. There's no meat on the bones with Carney.
Yeah, I completely agree. And while the media is panicking, we need to recognize that this is a classic art of the deal move by Donald Trump from chapter 2, more specifically, if you want to go read it for yourself. Trump is following his own rule of maximize your options and use your leverage. He's using the same playbook here that he always uses. He throws out a radical maximalist demand, like calling the USMCA irrelevant, just to see who blinks first. By telling the media that the Canada-China deal is okay one day, and then saying he doesn't need Canadian products the next, he's hitting Ottawa with mixed signals. And it's intentionally designed to keep us scrambling and off balance for that 2026 review. Trump never shows weakness. He operates on hyperbole. Last thing I'll say is that while Trump plays for leverage, Carney is playing right into it. And we'll talk more about it, but he's running to Beijing. And by doing that, Carney is giving Trump the perfect excuse to say that Canada has abandoned North America. Do you have anything else to add to that, Ian?
Well, this is right out of Trump's playbook in dealing with world leaders. Praise them, flatter them, while he stabs them in the back.
Yeah, I completely agree. So let's move on to segment 2. This is going to be a pretty loaded one, but I think our viewers can handle it. While Trump lays this trap in D.C., Mark Carney handed over the proverbial keys to the House to Beijing. Carney says that this partnership sets Canada up for a, quote, new world order. And to add insult to injury, he told reporters that the Chinese dictatorship in Beijing is more predictable than the United States of America, our closest ally and the democracy right in our backyard. Well, let's watch Mark Carney. Let's see what he said previously about China and how it matches up to today.
Mr. Carney?
Well, we're in a security section. I think we didn't have a chance to talk about anything internationally. I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
China, you say?
Yeah. I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order. World order.
Okay, Ian, so you just saw the two Prime Minister Carneys, less than a year apart. What do you make of it?
Well, the last time I heard that phrase was 33 years ago from Bush Sr. But he didn't say it quite like that. He didn't say new world order like a robot. Anyway, Mr. Carney changes his personal values as often as he changes his underwear. One day, China's the enemy. The next day, let's do business with them. Now, China has jailed and tortured over 1 million Uyghurs and put a $10 million bounty on a conservative candidate in the last election. They jailed 2 innocent Canadians for almost 3 years. These are not Canadian values. No Canadian I know behaves like this, and none of these liberals behind me that I worked with would ever do business with a dictator that jails and kills people. This is what unethical businessmen do just to make dirty money. And we've seen movies like that. I'm going to give an example. Before I got into politics, I was in the mining business, and Adnan Khashoggi was in Toronto at that time and doing his business deals. The main thing he was doing was selling guns to the Arab states. And I had a meeting with his partner, who was a Jewish man, and I said, how can you reconcile your partner selling guns that are going to kill Jews in the Middle East? And he said, business is business.
Yeah, that's a lot of great insight. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when the New World Order was dismissed as a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. Well, I think that Mark Carney just ended that debate and is exposing what many call the globalist agenda. But more importantly, watching him walk around Beijing, I was reminded of one of my favorite artists of all time, Paul McCartney. He had this song. It's called Back in the USSR. Well, maybe Carney should write his own version and call it Back in the PRC. But joking aside, he went to China to provoke Trump, and the Trump team is watching. His former campaign manager and now advisor, Chris LaCivita, just warned that this won't end well for Carney, and as we've seen, I don't think it has. But more importantly, since we love facts on this show, CSIS has officially named China as an enduring threat. They have spied on our citizens, have held Canadian hostages, and even the media was forced to carry burner phones in Beijing because the espionage risk is so high. And not even that, China is a hub for our greatest enemies. 90% of Iran's crude oil goes to funding their regime, and they're funding terrorist groups all over the Middle East that are killing people. And the final thing that I learned is that one of the battery manufacturers, Clarios, is owned by none other than Brookfield Asset Management. I think it's a reasonable conclusion that if the ones that they use now are going to be used in the Canadian market, I think that's not rocket science to put 2 + 2 together. Carney wants to be back in the PRC, as I call it. Well, Doug Ford has a different message. So let's take a look at our final clip of Doug Ford.
Well, first of all, anyone who buys these cars, they won't be allowed to go to the U.S. Cybersecurity. I call it the spy car that we're bringing in, and they won't be allowed to get over there. And it's going to tick off the Americans. 80% of our autos are going down there. I believe that speaking to the auto sector, speaking to the supply chain as well, they were coming up with a collaborative agreement. But now throw China in here for what?
Okay, Ian, so Ford seems to be creating distance from this liberal government in the last little while. What do you make of all this?
I guess the bromance is over. I've been critical of Ford on some other issues, but totally agree with him on this, to call these cheap Chinese cars spy cars. But worse is that Carney not only pissed off Ford, but other premiers across Canada. Manitoba didn't get high tariffs removed from pork. Atlantic provinces didn't get high tariffs reduced from lobster. Meanwhile, Alberta's already angry about the meaningless MOU that promises maybe an oil pipeline in 20 years. And Quebec is angry about everything, but especially about any pipelines. Carney is pitting all the provinces of Canada against each other, which is not what a prime minister is supposed to do.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Ian, because between Carney and Ford, this is like a game room in a mental hospital. I don't know what's going on here. Even as a conservative, I've been highly critical of Doug Ford from the beginning for the disaster that he has caused. Whether it's that stupid Canada Not For Sale hat, pouring out that Crown Royal bottle, or even that famous Reagan ad, I think that Ford has done everything in his power to destroy USMCA. And I agree with you. What he's saying is right. But the thing is he's a hypocrite. And now he's suddenly upset because Mark Carney is ruining the relationship with the United States. Well, Doug, you don't get to have it both ways. You can't poke the bear for a year to score cheap political points and then cry foul when the prime minister jumps up and gets into bed with the bear that you poked. You both broke it. And now the auto workers and the steel workers and all the other workers that are going to be affected in this province are the ones who are going to have to pay the price. But I completely agree with you on the spy cars comment. Do you have anything else to say, Ian?
Well, you talked about these two being in the asylum, and I want to quote Jack Nicholson. Is that as good as it gets?
I hope not, because if that's as good as it gets, then this country is in some serious frickin' trouble. But anyways, we've come to the end of our show. We know a lot more happened this week, but guess what? On this show, We let the stories develop, and then we find the angles that nobody's covering. Well, anyways, everybody, please remember, like, comment, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so that you do not miss a video. We'll catch you all next week.